The journey to the moon didn't begin with a single spacecraft launch, but rather through a series of events that shaped the landscape of human space exploration. It all started during the early days of the Cold War, a time marked by fierce rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. The space race was a battle not just for technological superiority, but also for political influence and ideological dominance. In 1957, the Soviet Union stunned the world by launching the first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1. This moment marked the beginning of the space race, as it demonstrated that space exploration was no longer a dream, but an achievable goal. The United States, feeling the weight of this challenge, quickly set out to catch up. The United States response came in the form of NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Established in 1958, NASA's mission was to organize and direct space research and exploration. And one of its boldest objectives was to put a man on the moon. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy set a daring goal before the American people: to land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth by the end of the decade. This challenge would require unprecedented technological advancements and collaboration across multiple scientific disciplines, including physics, engineering, mathematics, and biology. Kennedy's decision to commit to this goal would spark the creation of the Apollo program. The Apollo program was an enormous undertaking, spanning several years, thousands of scientists, and hundreds of successful and unsuccessful missions. The goal was clear: a successful landing on the moon, followed by safe return. However, the path to Apollo 11 was anything but smooth. The Apollo program saw a series of tests, starting with Apollo 1 in 1967. A mission tragically cut short by a fire that killed astronauts Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger B. Chaffee. During a pre-launch test, this devastating loss only strengthened NASA's resolve to succeed, and the program was overhauled with a renewed focus on safety and preparation. By the time Apollo 11 was in preparation, Apollo missions had gained crucial knowledge and experience. Though many challenges remained, Apollo 11's mission commander, Neil Armstrong, had already proven himself as a capable test pilot and astronaut. Having flown in the Gemini 8 mission in 1966, Buzz Aldrin, the lunar module pilot, had an extensive background in aviation and engineering, while Michael Collins, the command module pilot, was known for his precision and calm under pressure. Together, the three men would attempt to make history. The Apollo 11 mission was launched on July 16, 1969, from Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The rocket was the Saturn V, the most powerful launch vehicle ever built at the time. Standing 363 feet tall, the Saturn V was an engineering marvel, capable of generating more than 7.5 million pounds of thrusting up to send the Apollo spacecraft toward the moon and back. The launch was watched by millions of people around the world, with television broadcasts transmitting live images of the countdown and launch. The spacecraft's journey began with a rumble that could be felt miles away as the Saturn V rocket soared into the sky. Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins were on their way to the moon. After reaching Earth orbit, the Apollo spacecraft separated into two parts: the command module, Columbia, which remained in orbit around the moon, and the lunar module, Eagle, which would eventually land on the moon's surface. It was a dramatic and awe-inspiring beginning, but the astronauts still had much to overcome. The spacecraft traveled nearly 240,000 miles to the moon. The journey took about 4 days, during which the astronauts conducted routine checks and navigational adjustments to ensure their trajectory was correct. The pace of the mission was unrelenting, and there was no room for error. The astronauts faced the threat of radiation, micrometeoroids, and the unknown conditions of deep space. Inside the spacecraft, they were in constant communication with NASA's Mission Control in Houston, Texas. The engineers and scientists on the ground were crucial to the success of the mission, helping the astronauts solve problems and ensuring the safety of the spacecraft. By July 19, 1969, Apollo 11 was in lunar orbit, preparing for the crucial task of landing. The lunar module Eagle, piloted by Armstrong and Aldrin, was separated from the command module Columbia, which was piloted by Collins. Armstrong and Aldrin descended toward the moon's surface, with precise calculations guiding them. However, the descent was anything but smooth. As the lunar module got closer to the surface, Armstrong and Aldrin saw that the landing site was filled with boulders, making it impossible to land in the originally planned area. Armstrong took manual control of the spacecraft, flying it over the boulders while keeping an eye on the fuel gauge. With just 30 seconds of fuel remaining, Armstrong expertly guided the lunar module to a safe landing in the Sea of Tranquility, a relatively flat area on the moon's surface. At 2017 UTC, the lunar module touched down, and Armstrong radioed back to Earth. "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." The world's response was immediate and electric. Millions of people around the globe cheered, knowing that the moon landing was within reach. A few hours later, the time had finally come for Neil Armstrong to make his historic first step onto the moon. With cameras rolling and millions of people watching on television, Armstrong descended the ladder of the lunar module and placed his left foot on the lunar surface. His words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," were transmitted back to Earth. The iconic words captured the monumental significance of the moment, as humans had achieved something once thought impossible. Buzz Aldrin soon joined Armstrong on the surface, and the two astronauts spent a total of 21 hours on the moon, collecting 47.5 pounds of lunar rocks and soil, setting up experiments, and planting an American flag. They also left behind a plaque that read, "Here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon. July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind." The sight of astronauts walking on the moon was surreal. The lunar surface appeared to be a barren, gray landscape, covered in fine dust and craters. Yet, the astronauts were filled with awe, experiencing a profound connection to the vastness of space. Their sense of accomplishment was tempered by the awareness that they were part of something far greater than themselves. The moon landing wasn't just a technical achievement. It was a symbol of what humanity could accomplish when united by a common goal. The astronauts were representing all of mankind in their quest to explore the unknown. After their time on the moon, Armstrong and Aldrin returned to the lunar module, where they rejoined Collins in the command module. Together, they began their journey back to Earth. The spacecraft was carefully navigated out of lunar orbit and set a course for home. The return journey was far from easy. The spacecraft had to re-enter Earth's atmosphere, a process that required precision to avoid burning up upon re-entry. After a successful re-entry, Apollo 11 splashed down in the Pacific Ocean on July 24, 1969. The astronauts were safely recovered by the USS Hornet, a recovery ship stationed nearby. The world once again erupted in celebration. The moon landing had been an unqualified success, and the astronauts were hailed as heroes. Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins were given a hero's welcome in cities around the world. The Apollo 11 mission set the stage for further exploration of the moon and beyond. It showed that humanity had the potential to break through boundaries once thought insurmountable. The mission sparked scientific research, technological advancements, and inspired countless people to pursue careers in science, engineering, and space exploration. Although no human has set foot on the moon since the Apollo missions ended in 1972, the legacy of Apollo 11 endures. It serves as a reminder of the power of human ingenuity and the relentless drive to explore the unknown. The moon landing was not just a moment in history. It was a testament to the spirit of exploration that continues to propel humanity forward. As we look toward future missions to the moon, Mars, and beyond, the Apollo 11 mission remains an enduring symbol of what can be achieved when we dare to dream big and work together toward a common goal. The adventure to the stars continues, inspired by the legacy of those brave astronauts who took their small step for man-made history. On August 5, 2010, a catastrophic event occurred deep in the heart of northern Chile. The sand mine, located in the Atacama Desert, was the site of a gold and copper mining operation that employed around 33 miners. As the miners worked more than 2,000 feet underground, disaster struck when a massive rock slide collapsed the entrance to the mine, trapping the workers inside. The miners were working in a section of the mine known for its difficult conditions. Suddenly, without warning, the tunnel caved in, leaving them cut off from the outside world. The collapse created an impenetrable barrier of rock, and for several hours, no one knew whether the miners had survived. At first, the situation seemed hopeless. With no way to communicate with the trapped miners, it was unclear whether they were alive or dead. The Chilean government mobilized immediately, with search and rescue teams working tirelessly to locate any signs of life. After hours of uncertainty, a breakthrough occurred. Rescue teams managed to drill a small hole into the collapsed mine. At first, they feared they would find no survivors, but what they discovered was nothing short of miraculous. As the drill bit broke through to the miners' shelter, a note attached to the drill greeted the rescuers. The note read, "Estamos bien en el refugio. Los 33, we are well in the shelter. The 33 of us." The miners had survived. They had found refuge in a small area within the mine, and they were still alive. This discovery brought hope to a nation and the world. The note served as a beacon of survival and determination, giving both the miners and their families the hope they desperately needed. Inside the shelter, the miners had access to a small supply of food and water, which allowed them to survive the initial days. However, their situation remained dire. They were trapped underground, with no way of knowing how long it would take for for the rescue operation to free them. The Chilean government, realizing the magnitude of the situation, immediately called upon international assistance. Mining experts, engineers, and rescue professionals from around the world offered their support. Among those who offered expertise were specialists from the United States, Canada, and other countries with experience in underground rescue operations. The first priority was to establish a communication link with the miners. Over the course of several days, a line was established, allowing the miners to speak with their families, medical professionals, and the rescue team. The miners were given psychological support and medical care, while rescuers began planning the complex task of extracting them from the depths of the earth. The Chilean government also established a command center in a town near the mine where families and the media gathered in anticipation of any news. The global media soon descended on Chile, and the world watched as the rescue operation unfolded. The rescue operation was unprecedented in scale and complexity. The first challenge was to determine how to extract the miners who were trapped in a small, confined space. A variety of methods were considered, including drilling larger holes and using different types of rescue vehicles. The most promising plan involved drilling a shaft wide, enough to accommodate a special capsule that could carry the miners to safety one by one. The drill, called the Plan B hole, was designed to penetrate the mine at a depth of over 2,000 feet, and it needed to be precise to ensure the capsule would fit and operate smoothly. Days turned into weeks as drilling operations continued. The teams faced numerous obstacles, including rock formations that made drilling difficult. There were also fears that the mine could collapse further during the rescue attempt. Every inch of progress was painstakingly slow, but the rescuers were relentless. Meanwhile, the miners' situation became more critical. They had rationed their food, and their water supply was running low. But their spirits remained high. In the days that followed, the miners kept their hope alive by maintaining a strict routine and supporting each other. They played games, shared stories, and sang to stay mentally strong. They also helped one another with physical tasks to stay as healthy as possible. Their resilience was remarkable. Through daily communication with the outside world, the miners learned that their rescue was in progress, and they did their best to remain patient and optimistic. On October 9th, 2010, more than 2 months after the miners had first been trapped, the drilling was complete, and the rescue operation was ready to begin. The first miner to be brought to the surface was Florencio Avalos, who had been among the first to enter the mine and had helped others survive. He was the first to ride the specially designed capsule, known as the Phoenix capsule, which would lift the miners to safety one by one. As the capsule ascended from the depths of the mine, the world watched in anticipation. When Avalos emerged from the mine, he was greeted with cheers and applause from his fellow miners, their families, and the gathered crowd. His face was a mixture of exhaustion and joy. He had made it, he was free. One by one, the remaining miners were brought to the surface, each greeted by their families and the media. With each rescue, the tension and anticipation grew. The process was slow and careful, as the rescuers did not want to make any mistakes in such a critical operation. By October 13th, all 33 miners had been rescued from the depths of the sand mine. The operation had taken 22 days to complete, and every miner emerged from the mine alive. The world celebrated, and the miners became global heroes. Their survival was seen as a miracle, and their determination and courage captured the hearts of people everywhere. In the aftermath of the rescue, the miners were given medical evaluations and psychological support. They were also hailed as symbols of hope and endurance. Many of the miners later gave interviews, sharing their experiences and the bonds they formed during their time underground. The rescue was a testament to the power of teamwork, innovation, and resilience. The operation involved people from around the world working together to achieve something that, at one point, seemed impossible. It showed the human capacity to overcome adversity, even when faced with the harshest of conditions. The rescue of the Chilean miners had a profound impact on the world. It served as a reminder of the strength of the human spirit, the power of collaboration, and the importance of never giving up in the face of adversity. In the years that followed, many of the miners returned to their normal lives, but their story continued to inspire others. Some became advocates for worker safety in the mining industry, while others used their experiences to inspire people who were facing their own challenges. The story of the Chilean miners remains a symbol of hope and courage, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is always the possibility of light. It is a story that continues to resonate with people all over the world, reminding us that miracles do happen, and that no matter how impossible the odds may seem, the human will can overcome them. The Berlin Wall, a barrier that separated East and West Berlin, stood as a symbol of the ideological and physical divide between the communist East and the capitalist West during the Cold War. After World War II, Germany was divided into two parts: East Germany, controlled by the Soviet Union, and West Germany, aligned with the United States and its Western allies. The city of Berlin, which lay deep within East Germany, was similarly divided into East and West. In 1961, as the tensions of the Cold War escalated, the government of East Germany, under Soviet influence, constructed the Berlin Wall. The wall was built overnight, without warning, and it became a concrete symbol of the ideological struggle between the capitalist West and the communist East. It physically divided families, friends, and communities, cutting off free movement between East and West Berlin. The wall also marked the broader division between the Eastern Bloc, led by the Soviet Union, and the Western nations that were part of NATO. For nearly 3 decades, the Berlin Wall stood as a powerful and unyielding symbol of the Cold War. It was a reminder of the divided world in which millions lived under oppressive regimes, and it represented the limits of freedom for the people of East Germany and the surrounding Eastern Bloc nations. Throughout the 1980s, the Soviet Union was experiencing significant internal changes. Mikhail Gorbachev became the leader of the Soviet Union in 1985, and under his leadership, the policies of glasnost openness and perestroika restructuring were introduced. These reforms aimed to open up Soviet society and economy, and they had profound effects on the countries within the Eastern Bloc, including East Germany. In East Germany, public dissatisfaction with the regime was growing. Citizens were frustrated with the lack of political freedom, poor economic conditions, and the restrictions on movement imposed by the wall. Protests and calls for reform began to spread across Eastern Europe. In 1989, Hungary opened its border with Austria, allowing thousands of East Germans to flee to the west. Meanwhile, the pressure on East Germany to reform was mounting as a new wave of political change swept across the region. In Poland, the Solidarity movement, led by Lech Wałęsa, had successfully challenged the communist government, leading to semi-free elections and the eventual rise of a non-communist government in 1989. Czechoslovakia, Romania, and Bulgaria also experienced growing protests and demands for political reform. The fall of communism seemed inevitable, and the Berlin Wall, a symbol of that system, began to crack under the pressure. On the evening of November 9, 1989, the world witnessed an event that would change history forever. The fall of the Berlin Wall began not with a grand plan, but through a series of misunderstandings and a confluence of circumstances that no one could have predicted. The momentous event began with a press conference held by Günter Schabowski, a government spokesperson for East Germany. Schabowski was asked about new regulations for travel across the border, and he, perhaps unknowingly, stated that East Germans would be allowed to travel to the west immediately and without delay. He had misunderstood the announcement, which was intended to take effect at a later time and under certain conditions. This misstatement, though a mistake, sent shockwaves through the East German public. People who had been longing for the freedom to cross the wall heard the news and immediately rushed to the border crossings in Berlin. The streets around the wall quickly filled with East Germans, hoping to take advantage of this unexpected opportunity. At the same time, the border guards stationed at the wall were caught off guard. They had no clear instructions and were unsure how to respond. In a moment of confusion, they opened the gates to the wall, allowing East Germans to cross freely into West Berlin. The people, many of whom had been separated from their families for years, surged through the gates. The wall, once a symbol of separation, began to crumble as people began chipping away at it with hammers, pickaxes, and even their hands. The images of jubilant crowds celebrating atop the wall, embracing each other, and tearing down chunks of concrete were broadcast around the world. The unthinkable had happened. The Berlin Wall, which had stood for 28 years, was falling. The events of November 9, 1989, marked the beginning of the end of the Berlin Wall. The next few days were filled with celebration and disbelief. People from both East and West Berlin streamed into the streets, hugging, dancing, and celebrating their newfound freedom. For many, it was a moment they had long dreamed of, and now it was finally becoming a reality. The reunification of Berlin was a moment of profound joy, but also one of deep emotion. Families and friends who had been separated for decades could now be reunited. For the people of East Berlin, the wall's fall represented the end of a long period of oppression. And for those in the West, it symbolized the triumph of democracy and freedom over tyranny. As the wall came down, East and West Berliners began to work together to rebuild their city. The physical demolition of the wall began almost immediately, and sections of the wall were taken as souvenirs by people from around the world. The event also triggered a series of political changes across Europe. Within a year, Germany was reunified, and the once divided country was officially brought together on October 3, 1990. The fall of the Berlin Wall was not only the end of a divided Germany, but also the symbolic end of the Cold War. The fall of the Berlin Wall is one of the most significant events in modern history. It marked the end of a divided world and the triumph of hope and unity over division and oppression. The wall, which had been constructed to keep people in, had now come down, and it symbolized the victory of freedom over tyranny. The collapse of the wall also ushered in a new era of European integration. Germany's reunification was just one part of a broader process of integration that saw Eastern Europe gradually shift away from communism and move toward democracy and free market economies. The fall of the Berlin Wall had profound political, social, and economic implications, both for Germany and for the entire world. In Berlin, remnants of the wall have been preserved as a reminder of the city's painful history and its eventual triumph. The East Side Gallery, a stretch of the wall that has been covered in artwork, stands as a testament to the creative spirit that emerged in the wake of the wall's fall. For the people who lived through it, the fall of the Berlin Wall is a symbol of hope, resilience, and the power of human determination. It shows that even the most seemingly unbreakable barriers can fall, given enough willpower, solidarity, and perseverance. Today, the fall of the Berlin Wall is celebrated as a triumph of freedom, and its legacy continues to inspire people around the world. The event is a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope can prevail. The Berlin Wall was more than just a physical barrier. It was a barrier to human connection, to dreams, to freedom. Its fall opened the door to a new era, one of unity, collaboration, and the belief that change is always possible. The events of November 9, 1989, remind us that the walls that divide us are not permanent. They can be torn down, brick by brick, by those who believe in the possibility of a better world. Thank you for joining us as we delved into these haunting, true stories that remind us of the thin line between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Whether it's tales of survival against all odds, moments of eerie paranormal encounters, or historical events that left a chilling mark on humanity, these stories show that reality can be just as terrifying as fiction. If you enjoyed these stories or have your own experiences to share, be sure to comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss more chilling stories from around the world. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.